Hello and welcome to the Multiplayer Podcast. We're a video game podcast where we review a new game each week. Then we do these little midweek episodes where we cover fun topics, Q&A, and this week, biggest gaming disappointments. And let me introduce the biggest two disappointments in my life. Paul.
Ouch! Disappointment number one checking in, Todd. How are you?
Doing good over here. And disappointment number two.
I'm just
Josh.
glad I'm in second place when it comes to disappointments. I'm not the first choice for disappointment.
I don't know if that's better or worse.
It's definitely better. It's like you're saying like Paul is the number one disappointment.
But you're not even great at being disappointing though.
Look, Vin Diesel taught me in The Fast and the Furious, winning's winning. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's true.
Doesn't matter if you lose by an inch or lose by a mile. Winning's winning.
This episode made me sad to think about in the first place, and you got to go bring up Fast and Furious.
I know this episode was hard for me. Like I was going through like the games that I wanted to say are disappointments, and then I'm like, man, that could have been an awesome game and just wasn't. Yeah. And it's their fault.
Yeah, it really is, and I'm sad about that, man, because so many great games that just weren't great.
Yeah, just fell flat. Just terrible.
What is better than being miserable thinking about games that have flopped than sharing it with the world? Misery loves company. And so
yeah,
we just thought we'll make you guys all sad too.
All right. I do want to specify one thing on here. These disappointments have to be games you've played. It can't be like a game that you heard was disappointing and then never bought.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
first-hand disappointment is the only kind of disappointment.
Yeah. You can't have secondhand disappointment.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's like, I don't even know what they call that.
That's just bad news.
That's
right.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I'm pretty sure. Like, we have not talked about this at all. Like,
correct.
We came up with this. We have not shared our picks whatsoever. So there's a very real chance that we're going to have some overlap here. But if we do, I'm curious to see what overlap we have.
Can I ask you a quick question, Josh? Was there any particular way you formed your list? Like, are you taking games that were kind of hyped and then they were as bad as possible? Or do you have like anything on your list that was maybe like still decent, but it was just a disappointment because you had such high expectations?
I went with games that I personally was very excited about that I then played and then cried myself to sleep at night. Game number one, Fallout 76.
That's the number one on my list.
Is there anybody?
I do not.
You do not have Fallout 76?
You don't have Fallout 76. Come on, that was a terrible game.
It's a terrible game. I think my expectations were by far the lowest of the three
maybe
of us.
That's true. Maybe that's true.
Yes.
Were you expecting Fallout 4 with literally the same bugs?
You wouldn't have been disappointed then.
Yeah, that would have met expectations perfectly.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So to me, Fallout 76, I mean, man, what a train wreck. We all played this game. We all went, there's a Fallout MMO that we can play together, and we were all excited.
We were in the middle of playing Rust. We were super into Rust. We were playing like a ton. And then we were like, oh, like a Fallout version of this where you can build your shelter. Like they take out the like offline raiding, which is fine. Like that actually makes me want to play the game more. But then we started playing it and we were just lost. The missions were confusing. There wasn't really a ton to do. And then just
it didn't even look good.
Yeah.
It was a train wreck, man. Honestly, I remember we played this game. We really gave it a shot. I mean, we put 15 hours into this game.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I think we all put probably at least 10 hours apiece. And it was just garbage, man. It was so disappointing to me. And on top of that, it's Bethesda.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even the fact that we were hyped for this game. It's Bethesda. It's Bethesda said, hey, we got a Fallout MMO for you. And they hyped it at E3 and all this. And it was like, yes. And then we played it. We were like, no.
and it did promise exactly what we were looking for because we loved Rust. But then when you get offline rated and your main base is gone, we would all just be like, all right, well, we're giving up on Rust. I hate this game. And then we would have to just like wallow for 3 months until we wanted to get back in. So the idea of having like a survival simulator with some PvP, but then your base is portable and you can always respawn it. We were definitely all in. And then I think, like you said, we played about 15 hours. And then I think all 3 of us got refunds, right? I know I did. I got my money back.
Yeah. Well,
I got my money back.
Yeah, I think we just got lucky that Bethesda was like, oh no, you're going to buy it on our launcher. So we didn't have Steam's guidelines of like when you can refund a game. Because we probably played it 15 hours, which we wouldn't have been able to refund it on Steam.
That was also in the heart of the backlash, though, too. I mean, not, on top of the game being just complete garbage, all of the perks for the Premier Edition, I mean, we joked about that on an episode, but they were, the helmet that they were going to send out to people,
bag.
and
oh
the
my
canvas
goodness.
bags that wound up being like the cheapest plastic bags ever. And I mean, I've never seen something quite so bad.
Yeah.
From a well-known developer.
Yeah, it's very rare that Bethesda strikes out like that.
Right, and they struck out hard, man, like hard on this one. So I know it's a well-known one, but it's the top of my list as far as just complete flops.
All right, Paul.
All right, so the first one on my list, I will say, is not a bad game, but my expectations were incredibly high. And to preface this, Josh, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on Dragon Age Origins?
I loved it.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
One of the best games.
Yeah.
Did you play Dragon Age 2?
Yeah, I played all the Dragon Ages.
What did you think about Dragon Age 2?
It was terrible. That's the one that recycled the maps and stuff, right? Was that the one? Yeah, see, it's been a while, but I remember that.
Dragon Age 2, I had all the hopes in the world. I've already documented my great love for Mass Effect. Dragon Age Origins does all the same stuff Mass Effect does. It's just in the fantasy world. I loved Origins so much. It had such deep storytelling. You got to explore these huge worlds. And then they came out with Dragon Age 2, and everything you did as the Warden in Dragon Age 1 didn't matter. There was no carryover from the first game. You played a brand new character, and the whole game took place in one city, and you never left it. And it was just such a disappointment. Like you mentioned, Josh, every single time you would run into an area, it would be like the exact same layout, and the caves looked exactly the same, and it played completely different. Dragon Age Origins, you had to be tactical. You would like pause the gameplay. You'd have to devise, how am I going to attack this group of enemies? And Dragon Age 2 almost turned it into a hack and slash. Like, do you remember how different the combat was?
I do, yeah. Origins was really, really good. I do remember Dragon Age 2. I remember being somewhat disappointed with it, but I think I was still just glad to be playing a Dragon Age game.
Yeah.
At that point. Like, so the game itself wasn't terrible. So I get what you're saying in the fact that, like, compared to the others, this one was a big disappointment.
Yeah, because in the first one, you would have to, it was very important in how you built your characters, and they would all have combos. So it would be like, okay, well, this mage is going to freeze them, and then my other mage is going to throw this meteor, and then they're going to shatter. And Dragon Age 2, you would pick mage, and it was just left click, left click, left click, left click, left click, and they would just keep shooting like a fireball. And it was just such a disappointment. I do, in hindsight, like it a little bit more in light of the full story. But at the time, my hopes were 10 out of 10. The actual game's probably a 6 out of 10. So I was really disappointed. That's the first one that came to mind for me.
That's a good call. I'm with you on that. I don't think the game itself is terrible, but compared to the hype and what we expected for it, it was definitely a failure in that regard. What about you, Todd?
All right, I'm going to go with my most recent disappointment.
Halo Reach.
No. Oh, I guess that is more recent, but it's not that. Anthem.
Yeah.
That was another one of mine.
BioWare's going to take a beating in this podcast.
Oh,
yeah.
Anthem was such a colossal failure.
They even like hyped it up so much where it's like, we've been putting, 12 years of development into this game, and like we've rebuilt it from the ground up, and it's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm in. Like, we played a little bit of the beta and we had a lot of fun. And then I think we bought the game, and it's just like, oh, this is the beta. Like, there isn't too much more. Like, what did you guys do? Like, there's no end game content for it. And like a lot of the missions were super repetitive.
And the load screens.
Oh,
I know we've already complained about it on a previous pod, but you would have to just load a screen for 30 seconds to run 8 feet, turn in a quest, turn around, and immediately exit the cave. So you would spend so much time on loading screens that really broke up the action.
I remember having a lot of fun with Anthem in the beginning. Like, that game, the polish on it initially was really good. The flying was incredible. I liked the combat. Some of the like the world bosses, you fought those big ash titans and stuff, where I thought that was really neat. And then it was like somebody just pulled back the curtain, and it was like there's nothing to this game, man. Like,
yeah.
You know,
the first 4 hours were great.
Yeah.
And then we just repeated the same stuff 3 more times and realized there's nothing else.
And that game made me sad. That's one where like Fallout 76 was a train wreck, and you just kind of stare in shock at that one. But Anthem was like, I'm having so much fun with this game. This is great. And then it was like Lucy whipping the football away from Charlie Brown, where it was just like, and I was like, no.
Yeah, the party just stopped.
Yeah,
like,
it really did.
There's nothing more to this.
Yeah, and I thought it was such a cool idea to be in these mechs that could fly, and they would overheat, but if you would fly really close to water, it would cool your jets. Like, there were some really cool aspects of that game. There was just no substance. It was just a lot of flash. It was a mile wide and an inch deep. I mean, that's really what Anthem came down to.
It really is, and that game makes me sad because as a gamer, I think we all see what could have been. You know what I mean? Like, that game could have been one of the best games of the decade if they had done it right. Like, to this day, I would play Anthem if they had the content and they, the flying, the different like mech suits, what do they call them? Javelins, I think. You know, you the combos that you could perform with your teammates. There was a lot of stuff that really had, going for it. But man, what a miss on that. So that was actually one of mine too, Todd. I was wondering if somebody else was going to have that.
I had it as a runner-up in my list. Yeah.
All right, Josh.
So I'm going to flip-flop a little bit here because Anthem was really, really fun in the beginning and then turned out to be a massive disappointment. Mm-hmm. My next game was a massive disappointment in the beginning and then actually turned into a very good game. So this one's kind of different, but No Man's Sky. So I don't know if you guys remember the hype that was around No Man's Sky before it launched. I mean,
I remember.
They had these guys
huge
on talk shows talking about the procedurally generated content, about how you could never, ever see all of the planets, and they were touting all of these incredible, amazing things that this game brought to the table. I can't remember that much hype on a game. I mean, Cyberpunk, but we all know that game's going to be incredible. So
we'll see.
Right?
We'll see if it's in round 2.
Yeah. So I remember, I mean, when it launched and everybody was so excited about No Man's Sky, and then people started playing it and they realized there's nothing here. Like, there's a colorful planet, but it's only one, like it's just a slider difference, on the size of the creatures or the color palette or something like that. And it just, people started realizing that they were kind of duped. And I'm not sure that the developer, I don't think they meant to dupe people, but I think they severely overpromised what the game was going to be. But now, if you play No Man's Sky, it's a great game. Like, I got to give these guys credit. I don't even know how many years they've been working on it since launch. I don't know the date that it launched, like 4 years ago, maybe. It is just a guess, but if you play No Man's Sky now, it is a phenomenal video game. It really is. So I qualify it as one of my biggest disappointments because it took 4 years for it to get there.
Right.
And in the beginning, I mean, there was news articles about, how they scammed gamers and took their money and, all of this stuff. And there was death threats against, people and stuff. It was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, I was really interested in the concept, and I think most people were under the impression that you would be able to play with other people. And I remember at one point they're like, yeah, there's so many galaxies and planets. It's a 1 in septillion chance that you'll ever run into another player's planet. And after that, I was like, oh, well, then I'm out. Like, I thought this was more interaction, running into other players. And from what I understand, they've incorporated more of that into the game. I've never played it. And that's what turned me off. My expectations were really high. And when it released, it was kind of like every fear that I had seemed true. And I just never even gave it a shot.
It is worth it now. Like, honestly, I can genuinely say that nowadays it is worth it. But in the beginning, that ranks up there with like Fallout 76 as far as like colossal disappointments for games that people were very, very excited about. All right, Paul, hit us with your second one. You had a good first one there.
All right. So my second one is probably going to be a little controversial, but it's Detroit Become Human. PS4 exclusive. I think Todd played it a little. Did you?
No.
Oh, you did. You never did.
No, I didn't. I thought about it, but then you didn't have great things to say about it, so then I never picked it up.
Okay, maybe that's what happened. I remembered you and I had a conversation. Yeah, so I have documented my love for Heavy Rain. I really love games that are like interactive movies. I'm totally into that as long as the story is good. I don't mind a game with no shooting if it's a fascinating story. And Detroit Become Human, I really loved the concept. Like, all right, it takes place in the future. We've got these very humanistic androids. And how are humans and androids going to interact? And at what point, do we have to treat them like human as they act more human? And I thought that was such a cool concept. But then you actually get into this game, and all you do is just like walk and walk and walk and walk. And there's some quick time events to like pick something up. And it's just super depressing where you're walking around in the rain with a girl trying to find shelter. And then you get beat up and your arms get ripped out and you wake up at a dump. And you're just like crawling through garbage trying to find your arms. So it was just like cartoonish in how the humans treated the androids. Everything was so extreme. There was really no nuance. And even my wife and I, we love the concept of thinking about stuff like this. We even just watched a cheesy sci-fi movie a couple of nights ago, and we were arguing over whether or not you could ever have an affair with a robot. Like, if it can't think, is it cheating? Can you have an emotional affair with a robot? And like so that was even something that we were, talking about just the other day. But this game, it does not look at any of it in a realistic sense. They even try to equate robots just being treated poorly with the history of slavery in America, of people who are black. So it's even incredibly cringy. It was a complete miss. But if you look at it, it has pretty good reviews. I don't know what is going on with those people, but to me, it was very cringeworthy. It was a complete miss in every way. Which is why Todd didn't play it, because that's what I told him back in the day.
That's what good friends do.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I'm breaking some of the rules, but I think you guys will understand. I was very excited about this, and it's just a game that never really came to be. Well, it came to be something else. Fortnite.
Oh, okay.
I was super excited about the zombie survival mode in Fortnite with building structures, having traps, like putting zombies in patterns and just, like Nazi zombies, except like a new interesting take on it. And then they're like, hey, let's try Battle Royale, maybe something. And then they just abandoned the rest of the game. So much so that the two game modes had different key bindings.
Ooh, that's weird.
Like, so if you switched over from Battle Royale to the survival mode, beta, whatever, it was completely different key bindings. And I don't think at the time you had you could remap them because it was early access, but it was just a mess. And then I don't think they really did anything with it.
That's interesting. I totally forgot that it didn't start out as only a battle royale. I forgot that it had other content.
Yeah.
I remember it might have been with Todd, but I remember somebody posting the video of what Fortnite was supposed to be with like the build your structure and put traps down and survive the zombie horde. And we thought as a co-op game, this looks incredible. And then
I was trying to recruit you guys to buy the early access pass for a while. And then it was like, oh, it's going to be free in like 3 or 4 months. And then we're like, all right, well, we'll wait 3 or 4 months. And then 3 or 4 months came around. And then it was like, oh, like, we're still working on that, but here's like a battle royale game. And then we're like, like, we're fine. And then it just never came to pass. And it made me super sad.
We tried to play Fortnite. We tried to get into that game when I think, PUBG was starting to get old a little bit. Fortnite came out and we tried to get into it and it just didn't click with any of us.
I think they're trying to introduce zombies into the battle royale game mode. I think that's how they're like trying to bridge that gap.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense because you have something to do while you're not fighting other people at that point.
The cycle is kind of like that, and the cycle's amazing.
It's a very fun game, and it clicked with all of us, so unlike Fortnite.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll keep seeing more games that have that mix of PvE and PvP. It's definitely a wide open part of the market that I don't think people really knew existed, and now there's kind of that space there. I wonder who will end up, taking over.
Yeah, and I mean, Destiny's doing it with their Gambit game mode, and that game mode is so much fun. There's so much innovation that can be done with like the mix of PvP and PvE. I'm pretty excited to see what developers come up with. But yeah, that's my second pick, Fortnite.
All right. My last one is and this was not to troll Todd. We kind of touched on it, so I'm gonna pivot again. But Halo,
don't you dare! No,
the Master Chief Collection was highly disappointing to me. Now,
disappointment number one, Josh. You ranked up to disappointment number one.
I was lying when I said winning is winning.
I played a ton of Halo. Like, I feel like I should be fanboys with Todd on Halo with the amount of Halo that I played, but it's like it clicked with him and it didn't click with me with the remakes. And maybe it's just because it's only been what did they release 2 so far now? Reach and what's the other one?
They Reach and Master Chief Collection, and then they're right now releasing Halo 2.
Okay, Halo 2 might change my mind, and I promised Todd I'd give it a try. But Halo Reach, it was just disappointing. I just can't. That's the easiest way I can say it.
The graphics are fine to me. Like, I don't have an issue with the graphics, but some of the clunkiness with porting a game from console to PC, I didn't realize how big of an issue it was going to be. Like, a big one for me was crouching and walking. Like, if you were walking forward and then pressed crouch, your guy wouldn't crouch. You had to stop and then walk forward, and it's because on a joystick you have like 0 to 100 on like acceleration, and they would let you crouch under like certain accelerations, like the lower ones but not the higher ones.
It's the natural movement too of the joystick,
right?
And
and when you hit like W, it's either 0 or 100. There's no like slowly walking. So like whoever tested it or something like just didn't notice. It got by a couple people, and then it made it into the final release, and like it just felt weird, like not being able to walk and crouch at the same time.
Well, and what's funny with Reach is, Josh and I right off the bat, we were dogging the multiplayer, and Todd kept begging us, at least let's play the co-op. And we played the first time for like an hour, and then immediately after I DM'd Josh and I was like, how do we tell Todd that this is even worse? Like, I don't want to play this anymore. And Josh is like, I'm totally with you. This is awful. And, we wanted to give it the old college try, but it was definitely a disappointment.
Yeah.
Halo 2, guys. Reach isn't known for their campaign. Halo 2 is.
I'll give it a try, Todd. I'll give it a try. But I have low expectations now.
If only to make fun of me. Like, I'll take it.
I want to like fine. Halo. Like, honestly, that's the thing. Like, I want it to be great. I'm a Halo fan, man. Like, I've got such fond memories of Halo, but it's just not right now. All right, Paul.
All right, my pick number 3. I said BioWare was going to take a beating, and my last entry is Mass Effect Andromeda. Did either of you play this game at all?
I did not, because I heard how bad it was.
Okay, so you guys, I've already said it once this podcast. You guys know I'm the world's biggest Mass Effect fan. I had signed up for the Origin Pass, which gave me full access to the beta, and I played it for 6 hours, canceled my pre-order, and I didn't play it for like a year and a half, even though I loved the original trilogy so much. I mean, anyone who was around when Andromeda launched, you remember seeing all the GIFs uploaded online of the terrible facial animations where their faces would turn inside out, their eyes would bulge. The one writer, sister, would be talking about her parents or her mom dying, and she was smiling. Like, none of it made any sense. The animations were awful. And then what really ruined it for me was, honestly, the storyline. Because when I picked it up a year and a half later, they had patched all that, and it looked fine. But everything that made the original Mass Effect games great, which was the storytelling, was completely absent in Andromeda. You know, it was a cool story. Basically, humanity was sending out these ships to settle new civilizations way outside the galaxy. And so they were waking up from suspended animation like 600 years later, and you are the Pathfinder to help find a new, colony for Earth. And all the game is there are some enemies called the Ket, and they don't like you, and they can convert humans into Ket, so they just want to stop you. And that's the game. That's the whole game. They try to stop you, and you fight them, and you fight them off, and the game ends. So there's no interesting twists. There is no, characters who are really working through anything. There's no real character development. It was such a disappointment. It was so bad, guys, that right after it got released, they immediately announced that they would release no DLC for the game. And guess what?
That's not a good sign.
No, because that's normally free money, right?
Right.
It's now, 3 years later. And what news have you guys heard about Mass Effect 5? None. We don't know if there ever will be. This game single-handedly torpedoed my favorite series. So Andromeda, what a disappointment.
All right, guys. I have the crowning disappointing game. This game came to us in the era of Rock Band and buying unconventional controllers for your 360.
Okay.
Tony Hawk Ride.
What?
All right, I did not see this one coming, but
I
all right.
didn't either. That's why.
Come on.
Oh my goodness.
Did you guys ever play that game?
No.
Were you guys a fan of the Tony Hawk games?
Loved.
I love Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Oh,
Tony Hawk 1 on 64. I probably played 700 hours. Loved it.
So I'm pulling up a list of Tony Hawk games. 1, 2, 3, 4, Underground, Underground 2, American Wasteland. Like, I 100% completed all of those games. Like, a giant, huge Tony Hawk fan. But then, like, Ride came out, and it was just like, what is this? It was really cool at the beginning, because it's like, oh, it's kind of trying to be like Skate and like super realistic, but then like it has this board, and at least for me, the board did not work well.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because we're not professional skaters.
You didn't have to do a kickflip to like kickflip in the game.
I know you didn't, but you put a skateboard under somebody, and all of a sudden it's not easy to play this game.
Boy, does it make you look stupid using it too. Dude, this is going to be my new joke. I always joke when someone's playing bad. I'll say, like, what are you doing playing on a Guitar Hero guitar? But now I'm just going to say, are you riding on a Tony Hawk Pro Skater Ride skateboard? Oh, man. What a dumb idea.
I mean, that's what companies were doing. Like, the Wii Fit was out around then.
Man. That was the thing. Yeah.
The Guitar Hero controllers, like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, were like blowing up.
Oh, so
and
much
they
fun.
saw that and then just said, oh, like, let's sell a game where they have to buy a controller too, and then we can charge more.
That's
Tony
a good
Hawk
one
Ride.
out of left field, Ton.
You like that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not expect that one. It's a good pick.
Just going through the old disappointing memories from my childhood. That one popped up. It's a deep, dark
Pick
one.
that needle out of the haystack, did you?
Yeah. A little bit of a
Well,
deep
I was
dive.
trying to think of what are really good games that I used to love and don't play anymore. And I'm like, oh, I used to play Tony Hawk games like all the time, and I'm like, why don't I play them? And then I remembered the dang board, and I was like, nope.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. That's going in. Well, guys, that's the show today. Hopefully, we didn't make any of you cry. Hopefully, we made you laugh a little bit. Most disappointing video games for us. See you guys next week.
With a non-disappointing game, hopefully. I need a hug, too.
Social distance,
That
Josh.
is sad now, though.
Motion denied.
Oh, dang it.